So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Naomi Sawada, and I take care of public programs at the Belkin Gallery. Welcome on this beautiful sunny afternoon for something that hasn't happened in Vancouver for quite a while. I think we're talking a little before this afternoon. When was the last time that Rodney, you, spoke in Vancouver?
I don't know. I don't think I've quite a long time.
7 years ago, something like that. So we thank you very much for allowing us to do this. Rodney is internationally known for his dry humor and his deep engagement with exploring ideas about art in this era of mass communications. And he works in several media, as you will be taking a look at today. And part of his ongoing concerns is that he is interested in the way that pictures and camera making are made, technologies, and how that influences the way that we see the world and see ourselves. He's also interested in the role of the artist, I think, and how all that fits in with your practice. Much of his work is kind of part detective novel, part psychoanalysis, and part philosophy of consciousness. And he is one of the most celebrated artists that have come out of Vancouver. And he is part of a large circle of artists who have come to be known as part of that generation that has influenced the world about photoconceptualism. We are very happy to have him here as an artist and part of a trio of exhibitions that will be happening throughout the summer and early fall in Vancouver. Rennie Collection, Belkin Gallery, and then Charles H. Scott Gallery. I'd like to thank a couple of people, Josh and the staff at your studio, for helping us. It's been really a pleasure working with you. And just a couple of housekeeping duties before we start this tour. Please turn off your cell phones or put it on to silent, thank you, or vibration. This talk is being recorded, as you see, so if you are worried about being at some point on the web, please be mindful of the camera's lens. It will be part of our website and part of YouTube, we hope. So, another announcement is that Janet Cardoff and George Burst Miller have moved their talk to 4 p.m. today. It was originally scheduled for 1 or 2 o'clock. It's going to be moved to 4 o'clock today at Emily Carr at the lecture theatre there, and we've done that so that everybody here can attend both talks. So please join them after the show. The time machine, that carriage that you see behind you, if you haven't had a chance to sit in it, it's been installed actually on the campus of the University of British Columbia since 2003. But if you haven't had a chance to see it, we'll be opening it up today after the talk and then throughout the summer. So you have until mid-August to come back and see it. Okay, so thank you, and Rodney Graham.
Thanks, Naomi. Yeah, this exhibition is based around two works. One from the Belkin collection, Vexation Island, in that room over there. We'll walk over there in a minute. And the Torch Chandelier release from the Rennie collection. Kind of wanted to make a constellation of works that kind of complemented those two works. Scott and I have talked about those, and then so I think it was Scott's suggestion or Owen's suggestion that we bring the camera obscura inside, which an idea I really liked actually. It just gives people more of an opportunity to see it. As Naomi said, it's been installed since 2003 outside in the pavilion with public access, but more limited, so it's kind of interesting to put it inside. I just have to say, when you do sit inside it, the image is not really as bright as it would be if you were in the original context, in the appropriate context outside with sunlight and get more ambient light. I'm going to go through the works chronologically, just to give you a bit of background on them, and maybe a little bit of the way they kind of relate to one another, the thinking of putting them together. So I guess hopefully this work. Maybe we'll go and look at the Vexation Island piece. Hopefully the mic will work, or maybe I could just kind of yell when we go in there.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
I was asked to contribute to the as part of the Canadian Pavilion 1997 Venice Biennale. I went with the curator the winter before to look at the site with Loretta Yarlow, the curator of the exhibition. And the Canadian Pavilion, which you may know is kind of a strange little building, and often gets mistaken for the gardening shed for the German pavilion. People think it's like a little, very small, very strange building designed by some Italian architects, I guess in the, I don't know, 60s or something, kind of with some idea of what indigenous Canadian North American architecture would look like. And it has a tree in the middle of it, and I think maybe the original proposal that I made involved taking photographs of trees from across Canada, which was, I kind of frankly did because I thought, well, maybe I'll get the gig if I offer something like that because it relates to the tree in the pavilion anyway. When I went to visit the pavilion with Loretta, it was all covered with hoardings. It was covered with these kind of planks that gave it a kind of rustic appearance that made me think immediately of the stockade in the Disney, I think it's a Disney Treasure Island film. The stockade on the beach. It gave this rustic kind of appearance, and of course it's a largely glass building, but the hoardings kind of closed it off and made it dark inside, ideal for projection. So that's, and I've been thinking about making a film about a castaway for quite a while. I've been kind of turning around in my head, and so I thought of doing this idea, or doing this film about a castaway, and I was thinking specifically, actually, upon researching it, I started thinking more specifically about a scene in Robinson Crusoe, the novel, when Robinson Crusoe, having kind of reconciled himself to his island existence, that he's going to be there for the rest of his life, decides to kind of explore the island. He makes the canoe, and he sets out to kind of explore, and he makes it about halfway around the island. I think there's a storm or something, I can't remember, and then he ends up coming back. He's exhausted, falls asleep on the beach, if I remember correctly, and then he's woken up by this voice that says something like, "Robin Crusoe, where have you been? Robin Crusoe, where have you been?" And he wakes up and he realizes it's his parrot. For some reason, I guess he's trained his parrot to say that, but so his parrot kind of wakes him up. And so I kind of conceived this idea of making a film about a castaway, and kind of, as I thought, I'll kind of ramp up the same idea that was in this earlier piece called Halcyon Sleep. It was a piece I did in '96. It's the first time I used myself in a performance context. I went to a motel out on the Barnett Highway and took a double dose of the sedative Halcyon after sleep depriving myself for a little while, and so I fell asleep, and I had my brother and a friend kind of carry me into a van, drive me home, and put me to bed. As a kind of, I was thinking of a reverse kidnapping, kind of a play on this sort of film noir idea of like somebody being knocked out with chloroform and then taken to some shack out in the, I can't think, maybe The Big Sleep, I don't know, some film I saw that in. So I was thinking this idea of doing a benign reverse version of that. Originally I wanted to do it with chloroform, but I got talked out of it, the doctor talked me out of it. So actually it was Jeff Wall's father I went to see to consult about it, and he said there are 3 stages of unconsciousness and the third is death or something, so maybe you shouldn't do it. So I decided not to do it, so I did it later. I thought about this piece for quite a while, in fact since the 70s, and then in the '96 I did it with Halcyon as a kind of more modern, kind of softer version of the same idea. Anyways, the film, to make a long story short, the video shows me in the back of a van, sleeping in my pajamas, with a view out the rear window of the car as I'm being driven in from Coquitlam or Port Moody, basically to Vancouver, with this kind of the landscape kind of changing, the nightscape kind of changing behind me as a kind of like a thought balloon over my head. So when it came to this piece, I thought I want to do the same kind of thing where it's like largely just me unconscious or in some state of unconsciousness, and then have one kind of violent kind of paroxysm, and then I can obviously conceive this idea of having this palm tree, of me shaking the palm tree when I wake up, so that the coconut falls on my head and knocks me out again, to create a loop, and use that as kind of a looping structure. So the film is largely just uneventful, obviously showing me lying under the tree with a telltale wound on my head that if you come in the middle of the film you might wonder why is it there, and of course it's explained when the coconut falls and hits me on the head. I had the opportunity of working with a professional film crew that basically worked for nothing, or for like basically next to nothing. We shot it in the British Virgin Islands on a little island called Little Jost Van Dyke, I think, or that we had access to. The people who owned the island, was privately owned, let us use it for nothing. We shot for 3 days in I guess in the spring, and then we needed to shoot another day, so I had to raise a few more funds, emergency funds, make some phone calls like on the beach, like to galleries to give me advances, and it was like a normal filmmaking kind of adventure. I mean, we had 3 days to shoot it, and luckily we had good weather. If we didn't, the whole budget would have been shot, and it would have been a blowout. We had no insurance or anything, so it was a super adventure, to say the least, to do, and it was kind of a very pleasant experience. I worked with a totally pro crew. All of the people were Hollywood people who were doing it just to put something different on their reel or have a different experience. Plus, we were staying in an off season in this luxury resort, so it was totally fun, and it was well received in Venice, and for me it kind of changed my career quite a bit. It gave me other opportunities. I'd been doing largely before that small scale works and often book works and things like that, and it kind of gave me a larger audience, and it was quite popular and played a lot for the next few years in various group shows, and it changed my way of making work in a way too, or thinking about a certain kind of work that was maybe more popular, accessible, related to culture of Hollywood. I made two other films after this that I kind of included as part of a trilogy, or thought of in a way as part of a trilogy. City Self, Country Self, which I shot in a small town outside of Paris, which has the same kind of loop structure. It has it's based on actually an Epinal print that I found that showed, it was part of, actually not a print so much as a little booklet that recounted the story of a young kind of country bumpkin coming into Paris because he's just received an inheritance from his uncle. He is abused by every kind of class of urbanite because he's a hick. So I made this film where I played two parts. One the sort of country bumpkin character, and my costume is kind of exaggerated, based on this Epinal print, almost kind of cartoon colors, and a city character, kind of a dandy. And there's one of the prints in this little book shows the dandy kicking the country bumpkin in the ass, and I used that as kind of loop point. So I had did a little kind of film of parallel cutting the city guy having his shoes polished, kind of walking with his cane, and the country guy kind of exploring Paris, and then eventually they kind of meet. The city guy comes up behind him and kicks him, and then his hat falls off and then loops back again. Basically replicating this one image in this Epinal print. And then the next one I made was How I Became a Ramblin' Man, which was again a loop of about 9 minutes, where I sort of Western milieu. I ride a horse in from in the morning in the sunrise in through a landscape, shot it around Carameus. I sing a song called How I Became a Ramblin' Man. So I sit on a log and sing the song. It's kind of a country song that I wrote. It's kind of inspired by Gene Autry. It's kind of interlude in a Gene Autry film in the 40s, or where he would the narrative would be interrupted by this kind of musical interlude where he sings a song with his horse or something. So I sing, and then I ride into the sunset again, and it loops around the sunrise. So this kind of in the end, this kind of led to this sort of trilogy of works. I have not pursued film really that much after that, but this one kind of started the ball rolling, I guess. Yeah, that's a shot of the island just from another island. It's not an aerial view, just from a mountain on another island. But you know, maybe we'll just leave it at that and move on to the next piece.
This piece. Actually, Scott invited me to make a proposal, if I remember correctly, it was in 2000, as part of a whole series of millennial events in the year 2000. And if I remember correctly, we were really going to try to do this earlier, to realize this earlier camera obscura project that I'd made, called Millennial Project for an Urban Plaza, which involves a camera obscura with a spiral staircase that's set in an urban context with a tree planted across from it in a position such that when the tree reaches maturity, it would be centered in the camera obscura and create an inverted image for the people sitting in the camera obscura. That wasn't really possible to realize. It was a little kind of too big, and it was not really appropriate location. So we started rethinking the idea. It was still sticking to the idea of the camera obscura. I had done a mobile camera obscura before. I think it's called, an earlier one in the form of an American rural mail delivery wagon. I found a picture of one in a catalog. It's a little U.S. mail wagon used to deliver mail in a rural area of eastern U.S. I had it replicated by a guy who specializes in that kind of thing in Alberta. And now it resides in this arboretum in France, where it kind of moves around periodically from tree to tree. And it has a simple lens and a screen inside. But for this one, we found this landau, right? I think that's the story. This existing landau, and it was modified with the help of architect Tim Newton and my friends at Toby Cycles Fabricators. So we found a lens that worked, and we had this thing fabricated. And I mean, what's different about this is it has a screen made of silk in the center that's kind of a circular screen, because it's a four-seater carriage. It has a circular screen. You can see the image from both sides, so four people can sit in it. And it's located up in the pavilion just out there, and faces a group of trees just beyond the library. I guess the ultimate source of this is a piece that I did in Abbotsford in '79. It's called Camera Obscura, where I built a very, very simple camera obscura building, basically an 8 by 10 structure just built out of plywood, and located. It's built on a farmer's some farmer's land on a hill facing the tree, so that there's an inverted image on the screen wall of the camera obscura centered. And that one just has a simple pinhole. So in a way, so I guess this is like the third one that I've done, and the second mobile one, and the only one that's sort of statically located. It was really nice to bring it inside here for this. For this exhibition, to give people an opportunity to see it in that way. I guess the original camera obscura led to a whole series of photographs that I did in the 80s of inverted trees. So that's kind of been a recurring image of mine. Not something that I'm so involved with now, but anyway, yeah. Since I'm kind of going chronologically, maybe I'll move on. I'll move on to this piece here. I've been doing light boxes. I guess it's first one I did was 2003. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. So bad with the dates. I did one of Erasmus, actually a study for this sculpture that later became a weather vane. One of them exists downtown, so it's an image of me dressed as the writer Erasmus, sitting backwards on a horse and reading a book. In this case, the light box. It was kind of a study that we did in a
studio study where I'm sitting on one of these horses that, mechanical horses that jockeys use to train on. I'm sitting backwards on it reading the Vancouver phone book, and I'm wearing this Erasmus type costume. It's a black and white photograph. We made that into a large black and white light box. It's the first time that I done that, used that format. Obviously, Jack Wall's done it, famous. I mean, a number of them since then. I like to work in diptych for larger ones in a diptych and triptych format, just partly formally defined by the maximum amount of you can get on a transparency of 6 feet here. So 6 by 10 is about as big as I can make an individual panel. So I kind of started exploring this format. First, I guess one of the first ones would be the piece that's in the show at Rennie now, called Three Musicians. It's 3 very narrow panels. And I like working with it. I like the formal constraints that are imposed on you by this format. You have to kind of compose each panel so that they work as a whole and so that they work individually. And obviously, I guess it has a reference to medieval, like religious paintings, conventions of using triptych formats of religious painting. This one is a second of a series. Not a series, a second work I made involving me playing a dancing figure. The first one is called Dance with 5 exclamation marks, and it's an image of me in a Western bar with two guys sitting on a player piano, one of them shooting at my feet, and I'm like dancing. I'm playing like a traveling salesman or something, and these 2 kind of rowdies are kind of shooting and making me dance. I was kind of interested in that, again, that trope or that cliche from Hollywood Western films, which is really as old as American cinema itself. I think the Great Train Robbery has like a scene like that where somebody's making usually a greenhorn of some sort, like dance. And I made that piece around the time of Abu Ghraib. I actually was thinking of that. It was just like a kind of horrible episode. But this one, I kind of wanted to do another one. I was inspired by this photograph of a 19th century hermit from Maine. I can't remember. I didn't get able to find the photograph. I just saw it online. It was an image of a hermit sitting outside. It's actually a stereo photograph from a stereo viewer of a hermit sitting outside his house somewhere in Maine. And it kind of started me thinking about the idea of like a hermit in the city. And I had an opportunity to shoot this on a house that was going to be torn down in an alley near Main Street. And it was a lot of the stuff was kind of there already. I brought a few other things in, but I had this idea of playing kind of a local hermit/wizard type of character, and with a couple, again, with 2 other figures like we had earlier done. So this time, we 2 kind of young kids who maybe come to visit this guy, because maybe one of them is drag the other one along and say, hey, this guy's really cool, he's really wise, he's like, he's, like something when you're embarking on life's journey, you may, on the occasion to kind of visit some person like that in the neighborhood, guy who's like kind of an old hippie or something. But I wanted to make him kind of sort of styling, kind of elegant, like he had a good style, So I kind of worked a lot on the costume. He's wearing gruppettos, so he's obviously used to doing this kind of dance performance where people come to see him, where he's like doing kind of sun dance or something. I don't know, but I brought a few props in, like a chair, these kind of wooden spoon sculptures, or with wind chimes or something like that. Again, this prop here is something I use in a piece called Basement Camera Shop. Sometimes I reuse the same props. I noticed there's a reference here to like what is it?
the Grunewald, I wasn't really thinking of that, but I could kind of see that, the Grunewald Christ. I wasn't thinking of myself as a Christ-like figure in particular, but I'll go with that. I was thinking more like the old hermit, you know. Don't know what else to say. It was a tricky one to shoot because we had this window of opportunity and we had to do it in like 3 days. So this was being shot working with Robert Keyser and my crew. This would be shot in 11 by 14 with maybe 5 11 by 14 transparencies, originals that would have been seen together on the computer to create the 3 images. So to avoid like distortion and create the maximum amount of sharpness. And I would of course be shot separately. In fact, Sarah, who does the Photoshop work on this, reminded me that this is actually top half of my body. This is different. This is from 2 different images. My head is another one too. So it's a composite. I would have been shot separately in 8 by 10, as with those 2 figures. We're not working in 11 by 14 anymore. I can't get the film really, so we're shooting in 8 by 10. But this was a tricky one to get because we had a limited time. The weather wasn't that great. It involved a lot of Photoshop to make it work. So, I'm gonna move on to this one. This is called Cactus. I call it Cactus Fan. It's based on a painting by Carl Spitzweg that I kind of ran across. It's here if you want to look later. He was kind of I guess sort of a genre painter, German genre painter of the 1850s, who worked in these small paintings. This one I think is less known, maybe the one of the writer in his garret. You may have seen where he's holding the umbrella. He was kind of like the German version of Norman Rockwell from the 50s, I think. They're kind of like slightly ingratiating, kind of. This picture is an image of a guy wearing a green kind of overcoat. He's bald and he's looking at this cactus. It looks a little bit like him, and the cactus is kind of he's sort of leaning towards the cactus tentatively. The cactus is kind of leaning back, like they're just kind of encountering one another. And I always thought it was kind of amusing. I tried to do something much closer than that, setting it in what would have been a really modern loft, with a kind of a businessman, like kind of a rich businessman in his loft, in this kind of groovy, kind of super modern kitchen with a single cactus in the window, and he's kind of looking at it in his green bathrobe. I did it like that. It didn't really work. I wasn't really happy with it. Started thinking about it, and then kind of was led to this idea of maybe setting it as like a scientist in a science lab, kind of looking at a cactus in a kind of slightly cold and appraising way. In this case, it's clearly like maybe an end-of-term gift or a birthday present or something like that. Maybe something given to him by students. Maybe after the lab class is over, he's kind of like looking at it. Kind of, maybe I've thought maybe he's kind of contemplating the paradox between like these balloons which are starting to deflate slightly, as you can tell, because they're sort of matte, and maybe they're going to kind of go down, and then they're going to be pricked. He's thinking about the physics of it, or what is this gift, or why is it wrapped like that? It was shot here. I also wanted to include it because it was shot here, you can see it in the first year chemistry lab. I thought it'd be interesting for students. I used the same 1x2 format as the Spitzweg. The Spitzweg would only be about like that big. But of course it greatly enlarged, but I used the same format. The balloons kind of take the place of this clock mounted high on the wall here. Kind of motivates the strange ratio of it. Don't know what else to say. I always like the
the comet. I pretty well left everything the way it was. Each station obviously has their comet cleanser, and I just like, this is like a kind of a low-tech lab. It's the first year lab. The other ones are, of course, full of computers, and I didn't want that. I wanted this very traditional kind of feeling. And I thought it was interesting, the show, in terms of, I don't know, just like of an attitude to nature, kind of maybe resonant with the one in the representation of relationship of a man to nature in the film, Vexation Island. Like somebody kind of in a slightly fraught relationship, let's say, to nature. Whereas I was thinking this other, the Leaping Hermit, is kind of more of this kind of naive hippie embracing of, his garden, guess maybe we could go into here. I don't need to explain the tree, I don't think. Obviously it's
This piece is called Torch Chandelier Release. It's part of, in a way I see it as part of a series of pieces I did concerning lighting events. I guess starting with Illuminated Ravine, a piece I did in '79 where I lit up a ravine in the campus, Simon Fraser University, with industrial lights, the kind that are used by paving crews, and overtime work at construction sites. I just illuminated this ravine with these kind of mercury vapor lamps that were powered by quite noxious gasoline generators. I wanted to create a kind of aggressive spectacle of illumination, like an interrogation of nature, I guess, in a way, in a harsh way. I made a film called Two Generators a few years after that, where I lit up a river with similar diesel-powered lights that are powered by diesel generators that also have the same kind of vibe, and documented on a single roll of film. I made another piece called Coruscating Cinnamon Granules that I kind of relate this to. It's a piece that was inspired by my wife's mother had told me about if you're cooking in the kitchen, you want to cover up cooking smells, you put some cinnamon on the stove element and turn the element on, and it creates a pleasant cinnamon smell. In the film, I just put poured cinnamon on a spiral electric element, and then shot it from directly above in black and white as the element was turned on and the cinnamon started to sparkle and scintillate. Eventually the element became visible in the film. It's kind of a glowing white spiral, which you could kind of maybe deduce was a kitchen element, but maybe not. It just looked like a tunnel or something, and with these sort of sparkling bits of cinnamon. And I showed it as an installation in a small cinema that was the size of my kitchen in the apartment that I lived in at the time, with cinema seats. It was a very, very tiny, I think it was a 16mm film shot in this sort of tiny kitchen-sized cinema. This piece, I consider kind of in the tradition of those kind of thought experiments. That one, the cinnamon granules piece was shot on a single roll of film. The event was documented on a single roll of film, as was the two generators piece. I just ran the film to the camera, no editing, and just showed it as a loop. This piece was specifically inspired by reading about the experiment by Isaac Newton with the bucket, the torch bucket, where he wound up the bucket full of water, and he wound it up and then let it go and observed the behavior of the water inside the bucket. First it doesn't spin, the bucket itself spins, the water static, and actually centrifugal force conveys this movement to the water and it starts to form a concave shape. And anyways, he used it to kind of make conclusions about absolute and relative motion, which are obviously I'm not going to get into that. I'm not really qualified to do that. I just like the idea of the spinning bucket and the idea of kind of a thought experiment. I kind of came up with the idea of doing it with something very beautiful, i.e. a chandelier, just watching. So we just wound up a chandelier. The chandelier is kind of torqued up like, I don't know, 100 times on a rope. And we shot it at 48 frames a second with the camera on its side. And then we had this special picture. Lids. A special projector made. I had a special projector made, the type that's used for viewing dailies. The film people, you can watch them at twice the normal speed. You know, you can get through more of the dailies very, very quickly. So, but it was made on its side. I think there was it was a custom projector. There was some reason for making sometimes these projectors on their side. I was interested to make a picture of film that was in like a portrait format rather than in a landscape format. And I think of even the tree photographs I do, I shoot them mostly in a vertical portrait format. I think of them as portraits, and this is I mean, the conventions of cinema are really, the frame is very landscape oriented. This is horizontal. I wanted to make this play vertical, which again required this very special projector, which runs at 48 frames a second. So you're seeing a little bit, quite a bit more maybe than you would be seeing if you saw it at 24 frames. I think IMAX and other formats like that shoot at faster frame rates. It's not that unusual, but and again, this is kind of is a little bit of a mirror structure to the Vexation Island in the sense that there's this sudden paroxysm of, sudden surge of activity, and then a kind of a tendency towards stasis, where it just kind of slows down, comes to rest, more or less comes to rest. Again, this was shot on a single roll of film. I think it was a 900, if I remember, 900-foot roll. We're shooting at twice the normal speed that normally would be for a 9-minute roll. So I think the film is 4.5 minute loop. I don't know what else to say about that. But I made this in, I guess, in the edition of 3, and the Rodney collection as well. Should we leave it at that? I can take any questions or anything.
Okay, so if no one has, or while you're thinking of other questions, I'm going to open up conversation to just ask you about the Public Art Commission, a public art piece that follows on the Chandelier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know what to say about that, but yeah, I made a proposal for this Public Art Commission, which would involve a giant version of of the Chandelier underneath around the street bridge. An actual chandelier, it's actually modeled on that very chandelier. But I don't know, they released an image of it, like what do you call it? A virtual image, and people keep on asking me, "Oh, I haven't seen it yet." I mean, I don't know. It's probably going to take 2 years if it happens. There's a lot of technical things to work out. We have to get the engineers to look at it. I mean, it's quite a daunting thing. And I find with public art things, it's kind of like, it's not really my thing. So it just kind of, at a certain point, goes in the hands of the engineers. I mean, I just said, like, hey, I want it to look exactly like that and spin once a day. It'll slowly wind up, hopefully. The idea is it'll slowly wind up, and then at 9 o'clock, it will spin out. But we still have to deal with all of the technical problems, like, we can't have any crystals flying off and hitting people or anything like that. So it's sort of at that stage right now, if that's, so I find it hard to talk about it.
Anything else? You have a question here?
In this piece? No, it's just, I mean, I'm always like, I'm kind of lazy when it comes to making films. I don't like making things that involve any editing or anything. I like to point, you know, I guess it's in the tradition, sorry, in the tradition of Warhol's films, you know, like I always admired those films. For example, the portraits that he did, you know, the film portraits he did in the factory, just put the camera on somebody and let them do it, and then the film runs out. So it's kind of like, and then of course loop it, you know. So I mean, I guess that it relates. I don't know what it's self-portrait, but it relates to, as I said, a kind of a body of work that kind of involves those kind of single role films. I mean, I guess something like Vexation Island is kind of an exception. I don't. Again, like I said, I made 3 of them, but I tend to find those. I don't really relate to filmmaking in that sense of, you know, a lot of. They're just too much work, you know. I prefer the Warhol kind of approach, actually. But those kind of ideas don't come to me that often. So I mean, when I come up with an idea for something that's like a single roll film, I'm always very happy because, and they do have this idea of a thought experiment. You're just documenting some kind of experiment, you know. The Cinnamon Granules was kind of like that. This is like that. The Piece of the River. But as to whether they're self-portraits, I don't know. I mean, these clearly. I mean, I use myself. When I started doing them, again, like I said, I was kind of inspired to do this piece, Halcyon Sleep. It took me a long time before I could kind of use myself in my work, and once I kind of did it, and it kind of seemed to be interesting, and it seemed to be a different way of working that related more to the way I like to work, like not having so much, say, in contradistinction to, say, Stan Douglas or Jeff or Ian's work, or especially I would say Stan and Jeff, where they're kind of working with actors. I like the idea of being the subject and having somebody else kind of photograph me and relinquishing a little bit of control, at the same time having this overall control, and also limiting the roles to the images to roles that I can kind of play. And they kind of obviously change as I'm getting older. Like I always say, it's like more character roles, less kind of leading man type of things. As you get older, you're kind of doing that kind of stuff. So hence the kind of old hermit, you know. And so that's what you do. What do we have to do? We have to adapt. Any other questions?
Anyone else?
Do you like to wear glasses which are like stronger than your prescription would be?
I never thought of that. No. Get a headache.
Yeah.
No.
But it's like all the pieces of art you made that are like super clear, super pristine, focused everywhere.
Yeah.
And in large scale.
Yeah.
And so the effect when you go to nature with the glasses which are stronger than the prescription, everything is so clear. Like your brains are getting information, and you see the shades and the reflection of light and objects like similarly with the pieces you do, like very clear and like shockingly clear.
Yeah, well, not all my work is like that, but a lot. I mean, the camera obscure image is softer, relatively, of course. But it's true that film is very, very sharp too. It's a heightened sharpness because of the frame rate.
And the Chandelier is like you can touch film.
Yeah. I wanted to create that effect that it's almost like real in the room. Hence, I hang the screen and float it out. And it's best when it's really quite dark and you can't see anything. And then the chandelier, when you first come in, sometimes the chandelier seems like it is real. But yeah, I mean, part of what my work is about that. I mean, at least the photographic part of it. Yeah.
And so, like you said, if you would wear glasses which have this effect, like a stronger glasses than you need, you would get headache. Do you have headache when you edit these stuff?
Yeah, actually, I mean, they are kind of harsh, like a little bit overwhelming. You don't want to look at them too long. Yeah, it's true. But yeah, it's true.
One here. I was just wondering, one of the big part you
Well, the music thing is, yeah, I mean, I guess I have to say I was kind of emboldened by doing performance artworks to be able to sing, because it's not something I normally really, although I always liked playing in bands, but getting up and singing was not something that I normally related to, but I kind of was slightly emboldened by using myself in my artworks. It kind of gave me, I think, and, but again, it was just, I just thought it was a way, it's sort of a way of defining and limiting the images, you know, I mean, giving me something to work with, like an instrumental set, you know. I know that had to have me in it, and often just me. So I guess it kind of came out of, but I don't know, I'm kind of an exhibitionistic type of person normally, you know. I mean, I don't think I'm not particularly good at doing that. It takes, you know, it takes a lot of shots to get, you know, the one that I use in the end. Like Robert has to kind of shoot me again, because I'm not like a natural. Let's put it that way. You know, it's not something that I'm slightly self-conscious. So I'm not really a natural. It's not like it kind of something that came to me at a certain point, and like again, I said around 2000 or 1996. I started thinking, well, this is a possible way of working relating to performance. Before that, it wasn't so much part of my practice.
Last questions? Okay. So
Thank you very much.
So just a reminder, you're welcome to take a look inside the time machine. Please just sort of queue up and we can put people through it for the rest of the day. Otherwise, we'll be open until mid-August, so please come back and enjoy the show until then. And the show at Rennie Collection, as well as Charles H. Scott, will be on throughout the summer and early fall. So take a look at our website and you can get all the information. Thanks very much.